Greetings. This is the video recording for class project 1, Biomechanical Movement Analysis using OpenSim software. This was a group project and I had teamed up with Shreya. So first let us start with the OpenSim software. Here we have installed the OpenSim 4.0 software. We already collected the data at lab using the Vicon Motion Capture System, and all the available files were transferred to this system. We had also labeled all the markers out there. We'll be using the Gait 2392 model. The Gait 2392 model has 92 musculotendon actuators that represent the 76 muscles in the lower extremity and torso. So this is the model that is generally used, 2392 and 2354, for simulating lower extremity movements. Let us go to the OpenSim software. Here we'll go to Open Model. We'll be using the Gait 2392 model. You can easily find this in documents or where you have actually stored the model files for OpenSim. Here I'll go to OpenSim 4.0 models, and here you can find the Gait 2392 model, and I'll be loading. You'll see that all the model files are with the extension .osim. Here we have the model. Here we are using the Gait 2392 model again. Here you can see the muscles. Now the first important step that we need to follow is basically the scaling of the model. Now the scaling of the model is very important because it ensures that the musculoskeletal model closely represents the physical and anatomical characteristics of the individual that we are observing. Here the test subject was Shreya. Let us first scale the model. We go to scale model. Here we'll put the mass of the test subject, which was 49.90. Now let us add the markers from the file. So here you can already find that we have the markers. Now we'll use marker data for measurement. Here we'll go to our record, the data where we recorded. There you can find the TRC file for the static. Now, yes, so we have the static file. Same file has to be loaded with out here also. Now we click on run. So here we can see that the scaled version has already been loaded. Now we can close this. Now we have loaded our static pose. So now the unscaled version, the original version, that can be closed. We can save this in as scaled_Shreya_02. This also saves with the extension .osim. Further, if we are later on importing, we can directly import the scaled version. Now let us actually perform the inverse kinematics. We again go to tools, inverse kinematics. Here we need to load the data for trial, marker data. So here we have the squat data. Static data is basically the previous which we used to scale the model, where the subject is not moving, and the trajectory data or the movement data where the subject is moving or performing the movement. In our case, we actually tried to observe the movement of squats. We were using 2 force plates and around 8 cameras to capture the motion with 39 markers. Now let us open squad T01.trc. So generally we can decrease the time range to just observe one cycle. We had already interpreted at what time we could get 2 cycles of motion, and we had noted the time. Here we'll be using those timestamps to actually to have less computation for the entire process. So we'll be observing from 8.63 seconds to 16.22, and we can save the output motion file as ik_02, and this goes as .mot file. And here we can give weights to our different markers. So by default we are assuming that all markers have equal weightage, but if we are very sure that some markers would have more weight or they are more accurate, then we can basically change it out here. Now let us load, let us run. Here you can see inverse kinematics actually being applied. So after some processing, you can see that the inverse kinematics have been performed. We can basically play this and see how the motion is happening. Here you can see we are basically in that time frame that we wrote, 8.63 to 16.22. We could observe 2 complete cycles, and we are playing that in loop. Once that has been done, we basically have our IK results out here. Now let us perform the inverse dynamics. Again we go to tools. We can basically stop this. We go to tools, we click on inverse dynamics. Here basically we can also load the external loads that we had. So we were using 2 force plates, and the force plate data is stored in this format, grf ground reaction forces.xml. And then in the main settings we can directly load the motion, or we can also do it from the file. We saved ik_2. We can also do the motion from the file. We can filter the coordinates to 6 Hz. The time of range we are processing is the same time. And now we can again run. Again the data is being processed, the inverse dynamics has been successfully loaded. Now let us close. So now again we can play with the dynamics performed. We can also see the ground reaction forces, associate motion data. If we click on associate motion data, we can click on the movement that we were performing, and we can see the reaction forces that were getting applied to 2 force plates. There was 1 force plate under the left leg and 1 force plate under the right leg. Here you can see the reaction forces. Let's play it. So you can see how the reaction forces are changing. So after this step, ideally we are supposed to do the reduced residuals. Now the reduced residuals is basically done to the algorithm. It uses the reduced residual algorithm, which is to adjust the musculoskeletal model's mass properties like the inertias and kinematics to improve the match between the simulated and measured forces during the dynamic activities. And then we do the CMC. CMC stands for computed muscle control. This gives us the muscle controls that drive the musculoskeletal model to track the desired kinematics and the movement paths under the external forces that are applied by the reaction force in that case. So it's a forward dynamic simulation technique that uses optimization to compute the muscle activations and forces required to perform this particular motion. In our case, it is the squat motion. But we kind of, whenever we try to run reduced residuals and computed muscle control, we realized that the model was failing. It was showing error, and then we kind of brainstormed why this error was coming. So there is a couple of hypotheses that we present here why this error was coming. Number one, and one of the biggest problems, is that the model that we are using is the Gait 2392 model. This model, if we go to the stanford.edu website where they have hosted the documentation for it, we can actually see that the intended use is simulating and analyzing human movement that is dominated by lower extremity muscles, and that's the reason we actually chose this. But it also has a problem that results may be inaccurate during motions with high degrees of knee flexion. So in squats, where the knee flexion at the final stage goes around 130 to 140 degrees, it would surely give us the erroneous results. We tried to see if any other model basically fits our need, but we realized that there is no such model which could actually simulate squat with higher accuracy. Another reason why there could be the problem is that the number of markers, if we see near the ankle in our lower limb, they are highly concentrated out here, but there is comparatively less markers in the upper body. So whenever I move, because the model Gait 2392 is to simulate gait cycles, but our intended use was to do it for squat, where you could also see more number of it ideally should have had more markers in the upper body part also, because the upper body part is moving and this part is mostly stable. It's not moving is moving less compared to the upper body. So that could be another hypothesis why it is going wrong. Also, the number of muscles that are getting represented, because if we see, it's basically an optimization function that is basically optimizing the muscle forces and calculating it. Here you can basically see that the number of muscles in squats may be more than the actual muscles that are getting used. Also, there are more muscles that are used in the upper extremity to carry on the action, and that's the reason the optimization function is failing. So we kind of used another method in recommendation of one of the lab members, Mr. Teja. He recommended using the static optimization. So the static optimization uses muscle forces that are required to produce the observed moments given by the set of kinematics, joint angles. It does it by the objective function of the sum of squared muscle activations of forces, and it is subject to equilibrium and physiological constraints. It is not like CMC, which uses dynamic optimization, but it uses static optimization and solves the muscle forces. So for each time instant independently, without considering the muscle activation dynamics, it does the optimization. So we would now run the static optimization on our model and see the observed results. The static optimization does take time, so I'll go to static optimization. Here we basically load the results, the IK results that we have. So here we can use the ID results, the inverse dynamics results, and then basically now here you can go to actuators and external loads. You can append to the model's forces and click on the ground reaction forces out here, and then we have set again the time to the same, and then we can go with a precision of 8. This would take a bit of time, so we will start running it. So here we have completed a static optimization. We can clearly see the amount of constraint violation that it has over our time, and at certain position the optimizer could not find a solution. We tried troubleshooting the options that are also available for all three, reduced residual, CMC, and static optimization on the Stanford website on, say, OpenSim, but it kind of failed. We did observe some results out here after static optimization. We can play the video and see. So here we have, uh, you can see the muscle activations, but they would not tend to be very accurate because of the amount of constraint violation that we have actually seen out here. So here you can actually see some results after static optimization. So to keep the comprehensive nature and completion of our assignment, we would be using the Gait data on the same model, which is available online by OpenSim only, and then again perform the reduced residuals. And now we have loaded the Gait 2392 data again, and here we are basically using the kinematics of Gait cycle. So here you can clearly see that now I have already loaded and then also performed the IK and ID results. Now let us go for CMC, RRA and CMC. So for reduced residuals, we click on reduced residuals. Here we can directly load from the XML file that is there. XML file is basically a format in which the desired, like, kinematics input, it gets autofilled. So here you can see the RRA file, RRA setup file. So here we have the RRA setup file. We can open that. Here the MOT file got loaded, the model is loaded, and the time is just defined out here. External loads are also loaded. If it was for our, if we were performing the same thing on our model, which on the data which we captured, we would also load the actuators file that is predefined, and then add the GRF and other files from here. Now let us run. You can see that the reduced residuals has started. It would take some time for it to compute, but here you wouldn't see those errors that we were encountering while we were doing for squats. Now you can see that the RRA has been completed. Now you can see that after torso, center of mass, and kinematic adjustments, all the final average residuals can be seen out here. If I go above, I can see how each of the mass adjustments were made for each of the bones, the calcaneus, the tibia, the femur, the pelvis. Then we have the new center of mass location, the new location of the center of mass. So all RRA is basically the algorithm again, which adjusts the properties of our model so that there is correct analysis further. Now let us run the CMC. So for CMC, again we go to tools, we have computed muscle control, that stands for CMC. We can again do the load from the CMC setup file. So here you can see the subject one CMC setup file. It is loaded. We can filter the kinematics, and external loads have been done. We would do the same step with our model if CMC and RRA would have been possible. Now we do the run. Here you can see CMC getting executed. It will take some time for the execution to complete. So now our CMC has finished, and now you can see the movement. Now let us just once play and see if the movement is happening correctly or not. There's some lag. The movement is actually happening correctly. So if we close this, we can actually see the movement. You can, if I played a loop, you can see the walking movement. These are basically the colors of the muscles out here are representing the muscles which are getting activated. Red means the muscles which are activated more. Blue means the muscles which are not activated compared to the other muscles. Now we can go and plot different things like a different actuation force. If we go out here, we can click on Y quantity. So here there are different things that we can actually plot. Momentum, muscle length, fiber length, tendon force, and then we can choose the muscles that we want to actually see eye getting. So if I click on this and then kind of close, and X quantity we can select as different quantities, and then we can see the various plots out here. So a lot of plots that we'll be observing and analyzing will be there in the report, and also the different plots for the squats. Yeah, that is all the procedure that we followed on OpenSim 4.0 and for our for the class project 1.